right, everyone. Welcome to the Route Consultant Weekly webinar. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Operations here at Route Consultant. And if you're not familiar with us, our team ran hundreds of routes across the country in both P&D and line haul. And today, really, we're here for a couple of reasons. One, we want this to be a place for current contractors to always be able to come together, learn about what's going on in the space, ask questions, and really find ways for us to be successful together, to find ways to thrive in whatever sandbox, whatever environment that FedEx provides for us. And also, if you're new to the space, if you're trying to get in for the first time, or if you're early in your contracting life, we want to be here to answer questions and be a place that you can learn and really help make the decision if this is the right space for you. Now, for all of our regular attendees, welcome back again. Whether this is your first time on here or you've been watching us for months, you've been a contractor for years, we always want these webinars to be a place where we can come together, learn, and ask questions. And I'll go a little bit into the format of today if you haven't been here. But first, I have a quick disclaimer to read, as I do every week. So Route Consultant is not endorsed by and is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Now, for today, if you've never been here, we will go over some content, some things that we want to talk about that are happening today to help you think about the space a little differently. But after that, we're going to go over a couple of upcoming events and new listings that have come out this week. And then it's going to be pure Q&A. So it can be questions about anything that we talk about today or anything else that you have questions about in the line haul space. We'll be here to answer. My ask is there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the window. If you do have those questions, type them in there. We'll make sure to answer them at the end and go through them all in as much time as we have. So for today, we wanted to spend some time today talking on the fleet when it comes to line haul. And in particular, some of the strategies around acquiring used or new vehicles and how to find success with both or either. There's lots of reasons to do different types of vehicle acquisitions in this space, and we want to talk through some scenarios for you. We've actually got two guests on this week. So first, we have Alex Froome, contractor and expert in the line haul space. So Alex, if you want to say hi really quickly.
Hello, and I have a question to start off, Josh.
Okay. What's on my shirt? Various Marvel characters.
I like it. I like it.
Comics. Yeah. So
I was trying to figure out if is that an angel then? So that's Angel from X-Men?
let me see where. I don't know. I think I've got old Iron Man,
Uh-huh.
Ant-Man, Captain America. I think this is Wasp.
Oh, it's Wasp. Okay.
Yeah. The
Very
old
good.
comics. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it.
So I'm glad you called that out, Alex. It's really important that everybody gets to see my cool shirts and we don't just gloss over that.
I think we should let everybody know that you can ask us anything. You can go from
Exactly.
all and FedEx specific. We can talk about the Chicago Blackhawks. We can talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. I really hope the Eagles beat the Chiefs because I cannot stand the Chiefs.
Uh,
So
I couldn't care less about who wins at this point. There's no one I care about anymore, so I'm watching for the commercials and the love of the game.
yeah, love of the game. So
Uh, Perfect. So we also have another guest. So Tom Wunsch here. Let me make sure that Tom did I get, let me see if you can get your camera working. There should be the button in the bottom there to unmute and turn on your video. But Tom is he's worked in this space helping contractors across the country find vehicles. So we brought Tom on as we kind of go through this discussion today about the different types of vehicles that you want and the different lifespan of those vehicles to bring them in. There you are, Tom. Why don't you say hi?
Hello.
hey Tom, what's the hat of today?
This would be Lacrosse Logan High School. I have a 15-year-old son that plays baseball, and
Gotcha.
we had 6 a.m. practice this morning. So it
Yeah.
was nice. Got to throw some fastballs.
I hope they're doing it indoors. I mean, I know that you guys still have some snow on the ground up there.
Yeah, it was indoors.
Yeah.
Yeah, just once a week right now, just kind of for fun to get everyone going in the winter.
Nice.
That's
That's one of
all
those things
good.
in college where they would make you go outside as part of your mental toughness training, right?
Well, right. Yeah. That sounds like some Marine Corps stuff there.
Yeah, perfect. So, Tom, I know we're going to go a bunch into kind of the different strategies. Just quickly before we get to the content a little bit later, can you just give a quick overview of Trucks, Tom, and what your company does?
Sure. What we do is we specialize in fleet acquisition. So we work with large fleets as they get new product. Um, generally they're going to cycle out the used equipment. Um, so we kind of specialize in working with the companies that are going to have a tendency to take care of their equipment because they don't all do that. So once we do that, and we can go in and we can find the product, and normally what we've done is, we'll be selling trucks to large dealers around the country. Um, and then how we got into this space was it was organic because I started having end users that were reaching out buying, and then they were telling people, and they were telling people, and well, here we are. Now we're on a webinar talking about it.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's all
I think
good, and I
that's how
appreciate you having me. Thank you.
yeah, a lot of us end up have weird stories of how we ended up in the FedEx space of I knew a guy who knew a guy, and now suddenly we're on a webinar together. Exactly.
Right?
So, before we get into the vehicle conversation, I know Alex, you said there are a couple of quick things that are happening in the Linehaul space that we just want
So,
to cover. Well,
yeah, there are two big announcements I wanted to make. So if you haven't had a chance to go onto My Ground Biz, definitely take a look. One is the peak points announcement. So if you are new to this space during peak, which runs from late November through January 10th, if you exceed a certain mileage threshold, you get a point. You get excess points, and those are peak points, they're called. So if you go over roughly 10% over your mileage threshold, you get 10 points. If you go over 15%, you get 15 points, and so on per truck on your A1. So those points will be that you earn during peak will be released for your review on February 16th, and then you can begin allocating them on February 17th. So in an upcoming webinar, we're going to talk about peak points, how you find them, where you find them on on your My Biz account, and then what you want to do with them, some strategies behind how you allocate them, and what could we see coming up in the future. The other announcement is even more exciting is that we're getting new fuel cards from FedEx. FedEx is moving away from the T-check fuel card because there's some security limitations with the T-check card, and we're moving to a new fuel card called WEX EFS. So there's been announcements on it. Every contractor is going to have to set up an account with EFS. The instructions are on My Ground Biz. If you go to the public announcement there, there is a hyperlink that walks you through how to set up your account. Luckily for everybody in the webinar space, I've been the guinea pig for the last 3 months, so I have a lot of experience with setting up these new cards and how useful they are. I will tell you that they have a lot more security features um, uh, um, embedded in the card, and you have as a contractor you have a lot more control. So it's exciting. That will be something else that we will talk about in the future, and some strategies and some explanations about how the cards are going to work and what to do with them. But those are both two really good announcements and exciting news coming up for FedEx contractors.
perfect. Yeah, and if anybody has questions on those, some of it we can answer, some of it we can't. If especially on the fuel card, it's still coming some of the details there. But feel free to ask it in the Q&A, and we'll answer what we can.
Yeah. And I mean, when we get to talking about these new trucks, before we get into, talking about what Tom does, I think it would be helpful, maybe Tom, as you and I just have a discussion about what does the truck market look like? Okay, so you have a couple thousand owner operators, or a couple hundreds of thousands of owner operators out there, but then you have these big entities like your JB Hunts, your Knight Swift, your Old Dominions, and even your FedExes who come in and they buy a couple thousand trucks a year, or about a couple thousand trucks that they rotate through pretty quickly every 2 years or so is what the typical large fleet carrier, how long they run the truck. Some of them run it for 4 years, but in general, it's 2 to 4 years is what you see, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
And so when they come in, they can't just give 2,000 trucks to say, mom and pop, um, truck dealer in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They can maybe handle maybe 50, maybe 25 used trucks. They need to find a place to offload 1,000, 2,000 operational trucks. And so guys like Tom, there is a secondary market that facilitates the movement of these used trucks into and across the country because a JB Hunt might buy 2,000 trucks from a dealer in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is great for that dealer in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but that dealer in La Crosse, Wisconsin can't handle moving those 2,000 trucks back into the market when they come in on trade. So guys like Tom facilitate the redistribution of those trucks across the country so that, FedEx contractors who like to buy used trucks in, say, Kalamazoo, Michigan, can buy them because somebody like Tom has either worked as a facilitator to move that truck to a dealer in Kalamazoo, or he's connected that truck to a end user in Kalamazoo directly. Would you agree, Tom?
Yes. All of that is accurate.
So, so just that's just the understanding of the market. So, as a contractor, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to decide whether or not to buy used trucks or buy new trucks. And there are opportunities and there are decisions making and there are pluses and minuses to buying a new truck versus a used truck or buying a used truck versus a new truck. But say, let's use me as a perfect example. Tom's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I'm in Colorado with operations in, let's say, Independence, Kentucky. Hey, Tom, I need three brand new trucks. I need three used trucks. I'm a Freightliner guy, so I could use three 2019 Freightliner Cascadia or newer with day cabs, um, with FedEx specs, and less than 400,000 miles.
Right. Okay. Just to kind of to add on to where you were with as far as with product and everything like that. With COVID and everything, allocation got cut significantly with the new truck sales. So this has affected the market quite a bit. So with what I do and what we're about to discuss, the reason it's important is because what that means is if somebody, if JB Hunt was getting 2,000 trucks, but they could only get 35% allocation a year for 4 years, um, basically they're only bringing in, 700 trucks a year brand new. So what's happening is those other 1,300 trucks that they would normally be cycling out, they've had to keep running. So now what we're seeing is there are a ton of trucks out there with 700, 800, 900,000 miles on them, and they're not worth anything. So what we're trying to work with, and what Alex, and all the good, smart contractors are going to want, they want the lower mileage stuff, right? And that's going to be better equipment. So Alex reaches out to me and he says that he needs the three trucks in Kentucky, and the nearest trucks, let's just say that I have, are in California. It's going to be very difficult for Alex to actually touch those trucks and inspect them, or even have a mechanic that he trusts and so forth to look at them. So what I've done is I have a company called NIS that I use, where they go out and they will send in an inspector to go in and inspect all of these trucks. They take 40, 50, 60 pictures, whatever's necessary. Usually I suppose if there's more pictures, that's bad because they had to show things that they didn't want, that you hope weren't there. But that's reality. That's just that's okay. Then we know that we're getting away from a bad apple. So, so they go in, they do the inspection. They're measuring percentage of brakes, percentage of tires, or tread depth, and so forth. Seepage on the block anywhere. Is there oil mixing with coolant? Just things we need to know, right? And they can give it. They can tell you, no, this thing wasn't any good, or this thing's beautiful, or it needs a couple things, or whatever the story is. generally we can kind of anticipate what's going to happen on this inspection, because the way I do this is I have strict trade terms that I purchase the vehicles based on those terms. So what that means is um, the truck that I'm buying, it needs to be minimum. It's got to be DOT compliant. Let's say that we agreed that we want 50% brakes and tires. Um, as far as seepage or body damage, there's a lot. There could be quite a few things that can go into this, and that's where, on my end, I can be an advocate for the end user, for the customer, because that inspection comes back, and what I do is I go back to the seller and I say, hey, um, our agreement was this and that, and the inspection right here has got perfect pictures that show that the the tread is not matching up, or tread is not adequate, or you got chunks out of the tires. Yeah, the brakes are bad, or there's a we've got a leak on the block. We got a leak at the oil pan. All those kinds of things are things that we're able to go back to, and it creates leverage to go back and get that truck uh, either taken care of, or we move on to the next one. Once that is done, we review the inspection and so forth. And I would go back to Alex and they say, okay, Alex, we got the 3 inspections. What do you think? And I'll point out what I'm seeing right away, the obvious. And um, as an example, an inspection that I had the other day, I just emailed it to you, Josh, if you wanted to show it. But what happened is there's 2 tires that came back. They came back at 4/32. So they're legal, they're DOT, but they're not. We're not running that. I mean, you're gonna make it down the block, and you could get popped for, you could get nailed for an inspection. Um, so just things like that. So what we did in that case, in that situation, was the buyer of this particular truck happened to be in Florida. So for our hypothetical here, we're just saying it's in Kentucky with Alex. So in that situation, what we did is I said, listen, we've got a couple tires that need to be replaced. And they're legal, but they're not really what I represented, what we were hoping for. It doesn't put that truck in a position where it's ready to go make money the day you bring it home. So in that case, what we did is we just gave a credit back to the customer and just lowered the price essentially. So he's going to get a couple tires. He's cool with that. And in this case, we hired a drive-away company. The drive-away company actually came and picked up the truck in San Bernardino, California, and took it to, in this case, they would take it to Kentucky, right to the front door. So we figured out with the pricing, everything like that, on the truck, on the inspection, on transport, the whole deal. We can have the truck literally brought right to their front door and it was a good inspection. And there's not any surprises. Once that truck gets there, it's what the inspection was. And that's why the inspections are so nice. A lot of people get offended if somebody wants an inspection, and to me, I don't see a negative. Part of their job is to find a problem. So literally, if there's nothing, they could probably find a problem with a brand new truck if they wanted. So, but that's okay, and it's reassuring to the customer.
The inspections are really, really important. Every single time I've ever bought a used truck, it's important to get either an inspection done by a third party. Don't trust the seller's mechanic.
Yep.
Or if you're buying it from a dealer, then make sure that you're getting some kind of what they call buyer's assurance. So whether you're going through Tom, if you go through a third party seller like Tom, make sure you get a third party, independent mechanic to inspect the vehicle, like NIS services, which is a nationally known inspection service. Or if you're going to go through a dealership like Tag or MHC or something like that, make sure that you buy or you get 90 days assurance on your purchase. Because in the first 90 days, if you're buying it from a dealer, they're going to own if there's anything issue with that truck and they can take it back and they'll repair it. Or in Tom's case, by doing this inspection, then you know that everything has already been identified and they're going to make sure and they're going to stand by their word that, hey, that engine's good, that transmission good, those tires are good, the electrical system is good.
Yeah, because you're putting a lot of in, especially when it's a used vehicle, you can never just trust a seller, like Dom's saying. Who knows what they did when they were using the vehicle? So an inspection is one of the most important things you can do to make sure that the vehicle is as advertised.
Right. And it's not even a comment about the seller, really. I mean, they got thousands of moving parts, man. Things break, and that's just the reality of it. And that we want to try to do the best we can to get that product in front of the customer, ready to go on day one. Because honestly, I tell people all the time, anyone that ever tells you a truck's not going to break, they're a liar. So that's the reality.
And the other thing is to actually, I know people have asked me in the past, like, oh, I don't want to buy a truck from JB Hunt or Old Dominion. Actually, it's the exact opposite. You really do want to buy a used truck that came from one of the large fleets because they have a very specific maintenance program that truck has been followed. And these are very well-run organizations, and so they're going to hit their metrics every 35 or 45,000 miles. That truck is in the shop being inspected by a certified diesel mechanic that can operate that can work on whether it's a Freightliner or a Kenworth or a Volvo. They're trained on that equipment and they're going through and doing all their preventative maintenance checks to identify that vehicle, and they're going to have a very robust maintenance package that Tom is going to be able to hand you and say, hey, this is all the maintenance history on this vehicle. This is when the last oil change was done. This is when the last overhead adjustment was done. This is when the last differential flush was done. And so that gives you a lot of peace of mind that that truck is being taken care of. And in my experience, I prefer buying a truck from JB Hunt or Old Dominion versus buying from another fellow contractor. At least with JB Hunt or Old Dominion, I know exactly what I'm getting, and I'm getting a lot of history there.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Now, Tom, do you help? So, Tom, in this instance, you've arranged for me to. We found these three trucks. We've talked about the price already, and you've arranged for the transportation from California to here. But hey, I only got like $8,000 to buy these trucks. Is that going to be enough to buy these three trucks?
Well, I mean, if you need to do financing, 3 or 8 grand might be light on the downstroke, but that'll get you in the door, I
Maybe I can
suppose.
scrape by. Maybe I can scrape by. Let's see. How about if I can scrape by $25,000? Is that going
I
to be
think you might. I think you might be in business.
okay? So who do I go to if I need to buy if I need to finance these used trucks?
Sure. What I would do, I work with AP Financing out in
Okay.
Oregon, which does a ton of work with FedEx. Um, honestly, I send a link to one of the guys out there, and you fill out a 6-line credit app, and that's that. And they're fast, they're good. Um, they get it done pretty quick, and they're easy to work with. They're not coming back with making you go get things notarized, and your next of kin and the whole deal. So
Yeah. Agreed. I
they're good
would
to
say
work with.
that in the used truck space, for FedEx Linehaul contractors for TSP, your number one choice should go to AP Finance. After AP Finance, you can also look at Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of Montreal, and Wells Fargo also have pretty robust what they call rolling stock financing operations. So tractor trailers, what we operate, Class 8 heavy vehicles, are called rolling stock in the banking industry. And so those are other banks that you can go get financing from. And then some savings and loans or local community banks will finance tractor trailers too, but that's on a case-by-case basis. And generally, requires you to have some kind of banking relationship with that local community bank.
Yeah, AP is actually, they're really good. They're flexible. Um, based on credit history and things like that. You don't have to necessarily walk in with A1 credit every single time. If you're a guy that's getting started and you've only, if you're just at 2 years on your CDL or whatever, that's usually the biggest obstacle is how long you've had that CDL. So, once companies establish, it gets easier. So typically you can kind of expect if you're doing the financing initially is they may want more money down. So you got to be a little more creative and stuff like that. Um, and like I say, I do have a good relationship with them where people that are new to the industry or not to FedEx themselves, if they're new to the industry, like I say, it is a little bit more of a challenge. But AP is a great source
Mhm.
every single time.
I would say so when you look at the market in general, and we can get into more details if our guests or our attendees have questions on this, but just to give you an idea, I have 36 trucks in my fleet. Um, I will cycle through and buy anywhere from 3 to 8 trucks a year, because my fleet is both solos and team trucks. And a lot of times, my team trucks, I'm always buying new because that's just the way I run my operation,
Mhm.
and that's a different discussion. But on the solo and the day cabs, I'll go back and forth buying used and new based off of the number of miles and what the market is for used trucks. So when
Mhm.
used trucks are, say, in that 40 to $50,000 range, it makes a very compelling case to buy a used truck at that cost because the cost per mile is really compelling versus buying a new truck. So if you think about it this way, if you buy a used truck, say the example we just had, a 2019 Freightliner, Tom is going to be able to get it to me somewhere between 40 and $50,000. If I assume I'm going to run that truck for 3 years, and I'm going to put it on a run that's probably going to do about 100,000 miles a year, and that cost per truck, when you take that $40,000 and divide it by 300,000 miles, then that cost per mile for that truck is 13 cents per mile. It's just a simple math equation. It's 40,000 divided by 300,000. Now, when I look at a new truck, if I'm buying new trucks at say 165, I'm assuming I'm going to get 7.5 to 8 years on that truck. So doing the same math, you take 165 divided by 750. Now that cost of truck is around 22, 23 cents a mile. Now, there are a couple more things you have to add to it. You have to assume that your maintenance is going to be more expensive on that used truck versus that new truck. And so the difference in the cost per mile is not as great as 13 cents versus 22 cents. The cost per mile really gets to about 25 cents for that new truck versus 23 or 24 cents per mile for that used truck at 40,000. Now, if that used truck is $80,000, it makes it a much more challenging conversation to have because at $80,000, buying a new truck is much more um, is a much better financing option, much better financial decision at that point. But there are plenty of times, like I just bought 2 used trucks in November for $40,000, and it was a great buy. So I would definitely always look at the used market versus the new market and make that decision based off of what is my cost over the life expectancy of that vehicle. That's what
Right.
you have to do as a FedEx contractor, to understand when it's the right time to buy used trucks versus the right time to buy new trucks. Tom, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's accurate. With again, getting back to COVID, the pricing is had extremes in the used market.
Mhm.
Um, there was literally a point in 2022, late 2021, where it was so hard to get a new truck that people were literally paying as much or more for a used truck just because they needed the product.
Yeah.
So in that case, to your point, your cost per mile is going to be astronomical. Although typically the stuff that you were seeing that was used that was bringing such big money, they were still under OEM warranties and things like that. You know, I mean, so, but still, for what you were paying was ridiculous. You know, it was tough to sustain that, especially for a new guy. Now it's the market is adjust down enough price wise that you know, literally you can buy 4 used day cabs for this, you know, with good miles for the same price as one new. So
Yeah, great. And this is something very important for all our attendees that as we approach CARB 27, doing this financial calculations is going to be really, really important for you to be able to generate sufficient margin to make for the being in the FedEx space to be worthwhile. Okay, so you're going to have to, every single time you need to buy a truck, you're going to have to do this math to look at the used truck market versus the new truck as we approach CARB 27, because there are going to be times when used trucks are very cheap, and then all of a sudden some OEM or some big dealer is going to be like, or some big fleet carrier is going to be like, I can't get enough trucks to the OEMs, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to bid up, or I'm going to buy a bunch of used trucks, and the price of used trucks is going to skyrocket. And then at that point in time, you need to take a step back and say, hey, I can't make enough money buying a used truck at this price. So the next 3 years, there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys in the used truck market as we approach that CARB 27 end date.
Yeah.
And it's going to be guys like Tom are going to be really important for you to talk to and say, hey, what's the used truck market like right now? You know, are you finding good value, or is it, you know, is the market really expensive?
Yeah.
yeah, I think.
Oh, you go, Tom.
Oh no, no, I was just going to say. I mean, I think that the market is in great shape right now. I actually we're kind of anticipating probably towards the end of the first quarter that you actually may see wholesale pricing going up just a little bit, just because more people are getting into the space. Um, there's been a lot of, uh, there's been a lot more action since November, quite frankly. So, where there's more people that are a little more confident, that are going to get out there and, getting after it. So, but yes, go, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I was just going to say, like, the big thing here that a couple of things we want to make sure everybody knows. One is you will hear people who are extremely successful using only new vehicles, and you will hear of people who are extremely successful using only used vehicles or some kind of mix in between. But the thing that is, I think Alex did a great job of highlighting is that there are calculations you can do, there are considerations you make for your business and the cost that you're incurring and the revenue you're generating. And you can really think through this at a granular level, because sometimes it will be that the new truck is the best fit and sometimes it's the used, but you can't just assume that one blanket policy will work at all times of year for every type of run, for every type of truck that you're thinking of buying. And so this is something that it's important to think about and have an actual strategy around this, and work that you do to develop relationships like with Tom if you're trying to get a used vehicle, or the right person if you're trying to buy a new vehicle, whatever the case may be. This is something to think about as more than just I guess I need a new truck. Like, there is some strategy and some thought that really needs to go in this if you want to be successful, especially as things like Alex mentioned, as CARB 27 comes, there are additional, restrictions and costs that can come with some of these vehicle changes that'll continue to happen over the years. And being flexible and having different avenues to pull on, different relationships to leverage to find the right vehicles at the right times is how you'll be successful in this industry.
Mhm.
So I think we'll pause kind of the conversation here to kind of go over some upcoming events and upcoming listings that are coming out. While I'm talking is when everybody should type their questions into the Q&A, that if you have any. The other thing, if Brent, if you'll go ahead and drop Tom's contact information into the chat for people, and we'll send it out after the webinar too. If you're looking for how to contact Tom, we'll put it in the chat in just a second. Now, couple of new listings this week. First two are Linehaul. So if you're on here for Linehaul, we've got a couple of new ones for you this week. The first one's out of Tennessee. It's 6 line haul runs at 3 million. So this is 11 employees, 6 trucks. It's 5 dedicated teams and a dedicated solo. So if you're looking to get into the space, it's a really solid set of dedicated runs, generating high revenue in close to home for me in Central Tennessee. And these are newer model line haul vehicles as well. The next one is out of Georgia. It is 6 line haul runs at 3.3 million. Again, this is 4 dedicated teams, a dedicated solo, and a dedicated or an unassigned team run. So two pretty large line haul operations that we have hitting the market this week, Central Tennessee and Georgia. If you have questions on those, reach out to us. We can give you all the details, all the financials, and help you out from there. Now, we also have a new Amazon listing this week out of Texas. It's between 18 and 24 routes on the Amazon DSP side, 59 employees, 26 trucks, and 4 managers. So if you haven't looked into Amazon, those can feel a little bit different in size. The average Amazon operation is larger. And so you'll see things like that where there's 59 employees and 4 managers at a business like that. So again, that was in Texas. So if you're interested in Texas and getting into the Amazon space, we have a new one there for 500,000 in Texas. We've also got a new EMS listing that just went live this week out of Arizona. This one's listed at $250,000 with 5 employees and 4 trucks. If you haven't heard about the EMS space, if you haven't heard us talk about it, we got all kinds of content you can go watch, but it is an opportunity to be in a very different space, but also very similar. It's just that the packages you're delivering are people. So different things to think about there, but we have a new one of those that went live this week. A couple of events to quickly highlight, especially for those of you who are interested in the line haul space. We've got a happy hour that was in LA, but we've got rescheduled to San Jose. As you can imagine, LA is not the best place to host an event right now. So San Jose is where the event will be. It's on February 25th. And it's a happy hour, and we're also going to have some content. Tim Goff, who is going to be there and talk a little bit about how you can save money and optimize in the line haul space. So he'll be out there, and we'll be out there in about a month. So if you're in the West Coast area, we do have that happy hour free to attend. You can get all the details online. We also are having a large kind of road show that we're doing specifically focused on line haul coming up on March 27th and 28th in Houston, Texas. So if you're in that area, we're going to have vendors, we're going to have content. You're going to be able to meet all of us there. I think we'll all be there, Alex and Tom, at that event in Houston. So if you're interested, that is, again, free to attend, but it's just important to go ahead and sign up so we know you're coming and we can prepare for you and make sure that we've got a name tag for you. So other than that, I'm seeing some questions come in, but all of our events are online on our website. So if you have questions on any of those, we can give you all the details and they are free to attend. Okay, so I see somebody requesting information about the listings. I see your number, Devetta. We can make sure that we reach out today. I saw a hand raise from Matthew. If you have a question, put it in the Q&A and we'll answer it and get back to it in just a second. But Devetta, I do see your info, and we will make sure to reach out about those dedicated lanes in Georgia. So this one here's for you, Alex. Is it possible for someone with no real logistics experience to enter and be successful in line haul without going through any kind of consulting or training?
I'm your perfect example. I did it. I did it 6 years ago. I came into this space without any line haul or truck driving experience. I'm still not a truck driver. I still don't have my CDL. I was I was actually a bond trader before I got into this space. I used to work on Wall Street, and bought 4 runs 6 years ago in Memphis, Tennessee. And I learned by drinking from the fire hose. I had a good manager for that first 9 months, and then he quit. But he taught me a whole hell of a lot about the business. From there, I was able to hire new managers and grow into Olive Branch and in Kentucky. So yeah, it's definitely done. I would say the majority of people who buy into this space don't have any logistics experience. I mean, I can name I mean, of my closest friends in this space, and understand that once you join the line haul community, become a line haul contractor, you enter into, I want to say, a pretty supportive fraternity of men and women who are in this space. And so there's myself, but I mean, none of us had any China trucking experience before this. I mean, there's a couple old school guys like your Dave Tomash, your Mike Schuyler, your Steve Campbell, or Steve Crawford, who grew up as, a truck driver and started with one truck and have grown and been very successful. But most of the guys who've entered in the last 8 to 10 years, I would say since like when Spencer got into space 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I mean, he didn't have any logistics space. So it doesn't take it. It just takes a person who can do a couple things. The big one is you need to be able to ask questions, learn, and implement what you learn. Um, and there is no dumb questions. It's always good to be asking questions. And two, the other thing you have to be is willing to work in the areas that FedEx wants you to work on. So FedEx prioritizes safety, so you need to have safe operations. So you have to be understanding what are the safety metrics that FedEx looks at, and we've talked about that, and we'll have more webinars where we talk about that. They want to know that you're going to be able to put drivers in your trucks, so you have to be good at recruiting. Or if you're not good at recruiting, you have to find a third-party vendor that you can do good recruiting with. Um, my favorite is Bright Flag, Tony Toby, but there are others out there. And then the third thing that you have to do is you have to have trucks that are up and rolling. You can't get paid if your trucks are not moving, and you can't have trucks moving if they're not, if you don't buy good trucks and don't perform maintenance on it. So you need to be able to perform maintenance. And I'm not asking you to be a diesel mechanic, but you need to have the ability to build relationships with mechanics or dealers who can do that work on those vehicles for you. And so in each of my locations, Olive Branch, Memphis, and Noki, Independence, Kentucky, I've built relationships with mechanics who will look at my vehicles. And there are plenty of third-party vendors, whether you go from the OEMs to the truck fleet maintenance providers like a Clark Power Service or a Dickinson Fleet Service, or you can just go to, for example, I use Northern Kentucky Truck Service in Independence, they're actually, yeah, they're in Independence, Kentucky. It's it's this great guy named Dave who has a 5 bay mechanic shop, and he takes great care of my trucks. So, I mean, it's just finding those opportunities and building those relationships. And how do you find out that information? You talk to other contractors, or you
Yeah.
come to us here at Route Consultants and you talk to us and we can put you in touch with people.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. I would echo, everything you just said there of most people who get into the space don't have any experience. I think part of your other question is, can you come in without consulting? Yes, you can. Most people, like a lot of people do, but the reason we design the consulting is to hopefully help accelerate your learning curve. And that's always the design of things like that, of like the program's designed to teach you the things that took us longer to learn than we would have liked, and hopefully save you some time and money on that front end to get you up to speed more quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I mean, we do consulting here at Route Consultants. There are a number of other contractors who've also do a side business of consulting. I'm not going to say we're the best. I mean, I think that what Josh and I do is great, and we'd love to partner up with you. But there are other guys out there that you can go ask. You can come to us and ask us of other contractors that we've provided consulting courses or services for, and is it worth it? I think it is. I mean, we make a very dramatic change for our TSPs that we work with. We either identify issues with their operation and why they're not making as much money as they should be. So your margins should be somewhere between 15 and 25%. Okay. I mean, that's just basic math of how our business is structured and what FedEx wants to pay us. That's what your margins should be. And if you're not, then we can do a deep dive into your business to identify where are you not generating enough margins and where are you spending too much money and how can you become more efficient. And then from there, we can also help you figure out how do I grow. And organic growth is the best way that you're going to create equity in your business and increase the value of your business. Because at the end of the day, someday you want to sell, you bought your 4 runs and now you're 30 runs, you're going to want to sell those 30 runs. So at some point in time, I'm going to be knocking on, well, not Josh's door, but Butch's door and say, hey, Butch, And it's been a great run, but it's time for me to ride off into the sunset. Where can you sell my business for?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole idea is help you get in and pay the right price for the right business, help you be successful once you're there. And then ultimately, when you do decide to exit, help you get the most money that you can and find the right buyer. So that's the full circle. But we can answer any questions you have. And in particular, if you have questions that you don't want to ask on here or it's more specific, you can always reach out to us directly. Info@routeconsultant.com will get to me at some point, but that's probably the fastest way to get to me. I do see kind of a follow-up here though, Alex. So I know this is a range, but how much time commitment is needed? I'm doing a full-time job, but I don't want to leave immediately until I feel
So
confident.
the lovely thing about being in this sector is that you can spend, if you're willing to pay for it, you can spend a lot less time in your business. Just understand that you're going to be eating into your margins. So, for example, I used to do payroll myself. I used to do recruiting myself. I used to do a lot of back office functions myself. And I worked a full-time job, and this is all I did from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then I got smart and said, you know what, I'm going to hire or pay for other people to do these things for me. And so I focus on what I'm good at because let me tell you, I suck at recruiting. I really, really suck at recruiting. So initially I used Tony at Bright Flag, and she did a great job of sourcing drivers for me. And then eventually I grew to the point where Tony and I had a frank discussion, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to have to hire my own recruiter internally. And so now I have a recruiter who works for me and does that. So that eats into my margins a little bit, but it takes it off my plate, and I don't have to do that. I have a payroll specialist that handles payroll for me, so I don't have to do that. Um, you can go to Tim Goff or John Haldy or um, Lee Muse and buy their software, and they'll do your dispatching and your scheduling, and they'll do your maintenance reporting and your IVMRs. You can go to Flint, and Flint can help you with your IFTAs and your IVMRs. You can go to um, uh, Dave, what's the guy? John Davis, and he can do your safety program for you. So there are people out there who can take things off your plate and allow you to continue to work your full-time job. And you can just be talking to your manager in the morning and the evening and getting a recap. I mean, it's totally doable. Just understand that your margins are going to be lower. But, the nice thing about FedEx is that, you can afford to do those kind of things if you want until you grow your business to the point where this becomes your full-time job. I'm like, look, I mean, when I first started, it wasn't a full-time job. I've now grown to the point where, I mean, I could make this a full-time job for me, but I don't. I work about 4 hours a day in my business. I spend the other rest of my day talking to Josh and being on phone calls and, doing consulting work and looking at investing in other businesses. So, I mean, this is really, I really enjoy being a line haul contractor. I really love the community. Um, and this gives me the financial and the lifestyle that I want, where it allows me to travel to go visit my kids who are in college. And yes, I'm bald. I mean, I might not look that old, but I do have kids who are not home anymore. So
Perfect. Yeah. So I think that really answers it. I mean, there are all kinds of different ways different amounts of time you can spend in the business. It's just a question of, you know, sometimes you may spend a little bit for vendors to free up more time, but I know, probably most of the line haul contractors I know are more focused on working on the business instead of in it. I think that line haul as opposed to P&D has much more ability and flexibility there for that to be kind of the lifestyle you go after. But management and having the right employees, making sure that when you're looking at which business to buy into, that you understand what types of things are handled by the managers right now versus the owner, and kind of understanding what are the things you would have to do or outsource is really important in that evaluation process. So Devetta, I see a few questions here. Several of them, I'm like I said, I made sure we updated your number and we're going to make sure to call you. Several of these are kind of specific and we can answer. But a couple of them I think is kind of a more general thing that we can answer and talk about a little bit here. So like, what does drug testing look like in this space, Alex?
Okay, so drug testing is really convenient because we operate under FedEx's DOT number and under their DOT authority. FedEx, as the motor carrier on record, is required to do the annual drug testing, or the random drug testing that we are required under the FMCSA's. So FedEx will notify you on a monthly basis which of your drivers have been randomly chosen. And while they're on duty, because that is a DOT requirement, they have to come on duty. They just can't come in on their off day, but they have to come in on their work day and take a random drug test either before or after their trip, depending on the time. And usually FedEx, at the larger facilities, FedEx will have a drug screener on site. So think of the hub. So think of like Rialto, California, or Woodbridge, New Jersey, or Memphis, Tennessee. In the stations, a lot of times they will send you out to a Concentra or a Quest Diagnostics and have your drivers go to those locations and do their drug screen. And it's a random. Right now, under the FMCSA, 25% of all drivers in the United States have to be tested on a monthly basis because of the failure rate of the national drug screenings. And a lot of it has to do with marijuana, to be honest.
That's the most important reminder I was going to give is even if it's legal in your state, FedEx is going to test for it, and it's not legal for them to be using it and operating. They will fail the drug test.
Yeah, regardless of what the state requirements is, if it's illegal at the national level, then it's illegal for FedEx and it's illegal for your FMCSAs and DOT. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages of working for FedEx. Because we operate under their DOT authority, we don't have to pay as much in insurance. We don't have to pay for trucking insurance. FedEx is required for that.
Perfect. Well, I think we're at the end of time here. So Devetta, this is a question about Canada. I'm not even going to go into Canadian laws, but basically, if FedEx decides that you won't, like, if you can't use it in the FedEx network, they won't let you. You'll still fail the drug test.
Yeah, so yeah, Nevada, there are certain, I mean, there are at the federal level for CDL holders, there are because of the US, Mexico, and Canadian trade rules, CDL holders are all held to the same standards across the country, just like pilots are held to the same standards. So you can't be smoking pot and flying an aircraft, and you can't be smoking pot and driving a tractor in any of those three countries. I would say, Devetta, the best thing for you to do, given all your questions, it would be to reach out to Josh, and we can set up a call to discuss a lot of these specific questions that you have.
Perfect. All right. So, Tom, thank you so much for being here. Like we said, we put all of your info in the chat. If anybody has questions, if you're trying to get vehicles or if you're just trying to make sure you know them for when you are ready to get them, we put all that info in the chat. So, and we'll send it out after the webinar too. But Tom, thanks for being on here and providing your insight there.
Very nice. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. And Alex, always a pleasure having you as well. And we will see everybody on this call in the March Road show. But other than that, we'll be here on the webinar next time. So thanks everybody for
In
being
2
here
weeks,
live.
we'll be here for Super Bowl week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we need to think about what we bring to that call, Alex.
Doritos?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Mountain Dew. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being on here, and we'll see you all next time. Maybe it'll be more exciting. We'll see.
Bye.
Thank you.